So here's another project I just acquired. I was working on a guy's equipment on his ranch, and mainly a bunch of ATVs. And they had this sitting there, and it was fire damaged. It was, you can see here, all this was melted down. Said the hood just melted, and I think they got rid of it. So it looks like the fire started on this side, and yeah, burned a little hose here, burned up the fuel pump. Can't see anything else up in here. Oh yeah, the intake. Looks like it kind of melted a bit, but don't know if it still works or not. I think this tire, I'd bet if the fire was on this side, because this tire is just totally flat, and I'll bet it burned a bit. But yeah, buddy. But I don't think it was an engine problem. I think they were thinking that the engine blew up or whatever. But it looks like it started up here around the muffler. I'll bet. But they were working in a bunch of tall, dry grass, and it caught fire. Everything else, the rear end is great. The rear tires are in good shape. And it looks like, let me get up here and look. The seat's dirty, but it is in fantastic shape. There's no cracks, no nothing. Yeah, it looks like there's only 49 hours on this thing. And it's a 100 series. I just don't know which one it is. I'll have to look this up. 22 horsepower, 100 series. It's probably like what, a L1 140 or 130. Well, the L series, this is a newer one, so it might be a D130. I don't know. I'll look it up. It actually looks to be in good shape, except for the fire damage. Interstate battery. That's a damn good battery. So that was a nice little find. I'll see if we can get that sucker running and replace the parts, the obvious parts. I think I even have a spare fuel pump that would fit that. And yeah, you know, replace the hose here. And I just hope it didn't get hot enough to damage anything else. I should probably take the valve cover off and make sure the gasket's okay. Might have melted it off, who knows. Yeah, interesting, huh? A little fire damage. But looks like they cut the battery terminal. Alright, well, I can replace that. Alright, so I guess I'll get started on this project. It rained last night, so everything's kind of wet through here. But I had this underneath the tarp. But I guess the first thing I'm going to do is just clean everything off. I always like to do that. It makes it a little easier to work on. You know, get all the dirt off of there. clean off the mowing deck underneath so I can see everything. And then I'll probably, and I'll go ahead and take the battery off too and check it and make sure that it'll take a charge. I'm sure it will. That's interstates are pretty good, and this is it's a 2013, I believe. What does it say? 2014, actually. And I looked it up, and it is a D140. The 140s have 22 horsepower Briggs & Stratton and a 48-inch cut, and the D130s had a 22 horsepower and a 46-inch cut. So not a whole lot of difference, but this is a D140, a 2014, and while I wait for all the burned up parts and I'm going to replace, and all here, I've already got a bunch of stuff ordered, and I'm going to go ahead and prep this thing, clean it up, and get the battery charged while I'm waiting. So let's do that, and I'll get back with you. Alright, so I have been working on this John Deere for a little while, and just replacing a lot of parts that were obviously burned, you know. I'll show you what I've done so far. Nope. So I guess we'll start over here. So I replaced the battery cable there. It was cut before, and while I was at it, I charged up the battery, and it held up a charge very nicely. It's a pretty good battery. What else over here? I swapped out the tire, got a new tire for it. The other one had some burn marks on the inside of it. So I got a new tire for it. Up here, you can see where I replaced the fuel pump and the vacuum hose here. Now it's barely hanging on. I think I'm going to get the little post inserts that are usually on the housing here, and this slides over, had been burned off. So, but I think if I just get a longer nut or a longer screw, that will go the rest of the way through on both of them. I think it'll hold it okay. And while I was at it, you know, I scraped some of the burned up plastic that was on it. Some of it's still down here on the cable, but the hoses were good, the fuel hoses were good, and while I was at it, you know, I took the valve cover off and checked the gasket. The gasket is okay. I just wanted to check and see if it was going to be burned or not. And while I was at it, I went in and took, you know, both covers off and readjusted the valves. It was I can't remember if it was this one or this one. One of them was kind of wide open, and I guess that would explain, is that when I cranked it up, it cranked, but you could hear it backfiring a little bit at higher RPMs. So, and I saw where I can get a bumper like this. I guess there's no rush. The bumper's easy to get, about 20 bucks or so. But if it's not that critical until I start to get a hood for it, if I get a hood for it. But we'll see. I mean, the hoods are kind of expensive. This is, you know, I guess new, they're going for about 750 bucks or so, and used about 250. It's like, well, shit. Yeah, we'll see. I'll just keep my eyes out. But, and also when I redid the tires, I lubed everything up. The lube points here, down on the tire, down here on both sides, and there's also one. Let's see. You can see that. There it is. And at this point, a lot of people always forget about that one. But so I lubed everything up, and what I'm about to do, oh, and I changed the oil on it. It only had like 49 hours on it, but I don't think it went through the first oil change after, I forget, what is it supposed to be, 5 or 10 hours, and then you change the oil, and it was due for an oil change anyway. But it didn't look bad, but I changed it. The fuel filter looks good. I guess what I'm about to do is take the mowing deck off, and I want to take a look at the blades. Everything engages fine. The mowing deck engages, but it does kind of vibrate a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and take the blades and clean them up, sharpen them, and balance them. And then while I'm at it, while everything's off, I'll make sure the spindles are lubed also. But I really wanted to take a look, because I know when they moved this thing around, instead of driving it or pushing it, they just got a forklift and lifted it up from underneath the deck and carried it around that way. So I'm going to take that off and make sure everything looks okay. Make sure the blades aren't bent or bent out of shape or cockeyed or whatever. But while I'm at it, I'll sharpen and balance them. But it cleaned up really nicely. After I cleaned everything up, you can tell it's fairly new. Like I said, only 49 hours. So not bad. So I guess I'll take the mowing deck off. It's not hard. You can see the front linkage there. And up under here, you can see this pin and one up here. So 2 on each side. It'll drop down. You can take the front, slide that off, and push the whole thing forward, and you can take the belt off, and then I'll yank it out this side and continue on. But I think that's the last step. I'll do that, and then I'll crank it back up and see if the vibration's gone. But I'll get started on that. Alright, so the deck is off. Like I said, it was pretty easy. Just a couple of clips, 2 on each side, the rear, middle, and then the one in the front. So and when you just shove it forward a little bit, then you can take the belt off. But the belts are in great shape. If I'm not mistaken, they have tilted this pulley up. It's probably to keep it from jumping off. I've seen problems with that before. This used to be, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, these used to be level with the other pulleys, and always had trouble with the belts coming off. And here too, there used to be just one single tab here that keeps the belt on. It looks like there's another one added, and I think they did this change a while back. There was a few times that I went through and welded my own tab here to keep it from coming off so easy. There's always one there, and I remember I welded one up here. And these brackets, I don't know how many of these that I've welded back on, right up here on the front of these brackets. They do break the weld right there. So FYI, just keep your eye out for that. And I've done quite a few of those. I think they were on the L series, L120s, L140s, you name it. But I've had to weld those brackets back on many times. Let's take a look at the blades here. This one's a little chewed up. The other ones aren't bad. That's kind of strange, just the middle one. But the spindles are moving freely. This one moves a little bit. That one is solid. That one's solid. So you can hear this one kind of rattling around. But when you look at the alignment there, they're not bent. That one's pretty straight. Oh, I'm trying to do this one hand. Yeah, that's pretty straight too, so good. I'll just take these blades off, like I said, clean them up, sharpen them, balance them, and take another look at this spindle here. But also, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, see there's the little Zerk fitting there, so I'll lube these up. This one and then the two at the ends. Yep, there's the other one. So I'll get all this cleaned up, lubed up, do the blades, and I'll put the mowing deck back on and test it out. You can see where I'm putting on the Zerk fitting. Another pointer, I also put a 90-degree end adapter on my grease gun, and it makes it really easy to get those tight fit, especially like right down here. You can see this. So the Zerk fitting's right here, and if you try to go in with just straight in with your grease gun, sometimes this is an example where it gets hard to insert it, but with the 90-degree, so you have a lot more access. And I had just lubed that one, so I'll go back over here and finish these two. Alright, the mowing deck is back on. Serviced it. The blades looked pretty good. I just sharpened them and balanced them. All that good stuff. I think it is ready to crank. And we'll see if it pops. I mean, we'll see how it runs. Let's see if I can find my key. Choke's on.
I still hear a little backfiring. I don't know if you heard all that. So when I have it at higher RPM, so I'll have to take a look at that. But the mowing deck, it's a little better. Cut down a lot of the vibration when I balance the blades. It's getting there. I just need to figure out why it is backfiring a little bit. One thing I have not done with this one is you know, check the carburetor, clean the carburetor out and all that good stuff, but it seems to be running well. It's just a little backfiring. I'm gonna go ride this around for a little bit and let it get hot and see if it still does that. Alright, so I still get the slight backfiring at higher, at higher RPMs. It seems to run good at low and mid power, but I want to get rid of that knocking. So I wouldn't say knocking, it sounds like a slight backfire. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and take this off, take off the carburetor assembly and make sure that's all good and clean and everything. And what I'm also going to do, you can see where there's some fire damage here, and it kind of melted the intake. I didn't think it broke any seals or anything, but there are some, you can see that crack there, and there's another one on this other side. And I tried to glue it over with, not glue it, but I tried to wrap it with some duct tape to see if I can seal anything off, and it didn't make any difference. I don't know if I was getting it sealed or not. So I'm going to go ahead and take everything off, clean the carburetor, and then while I have the intake off, I'll check and see if there's, any leaks or anything. And maybe that's the problem. But then after that, we'll see what happens. I'll just go through it again. I know I already adjusted the valves, but I could always go back and double check that. But I think I need to do this part of it first. So I got the cover off, and I was over here, about to start taking the carburetor assembly off, including the manifold here. Got the couple of things I saw. I'd replaced this fuel pump already, and what I didn't notice before, you can see the cracking right there on the fuel hose on the input. So maybe at higher RPMs it's just sucking in air. So I'll replace that fuel line here, and I'll still be checking this and cleaning the carburetor. But I also noticed up here on the flywheel and the magnetos here how there's a bunch of corrosion. I like to clean all this stuff off, especially on the magnets, and then clean the poles on the magnetos. So I already got those disconnected. So I'll continue on, and it looks like I'll be cleaning this stuff up, checking this for any leaks, and replacing this fuel hose here. I didn't notice that before, so hopefully we've found one of the problems. I think here in the fuel hose, and this will be just a tune-up really. Seems like it's running okay, but I like to clean them off. It's like putting on a new set of plugs, Alright, so I checked out the carburetor. I've already put it back together. It's pretty clean. There was nothing wrong with that at all. So I started to try to find out where the leaks are, or if there is a leak, and it was kind of awkward. I'll cover these two ports here with my hand, this one against my leg, and then I'll blow into it. But I can hear it. I can hear it coming out. It seems like it sounds like there's air coming out of here and maybe down here. It's just so hard to pinpoint it with my hands full like this. Yeah, I think there's something over here. just not as airtight as I'd think. I don't know where else it could be coming from. But I can definitely hear it coming out. So I'm going to go through, try and decide how I'm going to do this. I have some of the plastic bonding epoxy that I might try to seal these cracks here, through here. And I don't know about this. It sounds like there's something coming out on this side, but I don't hear it. Now this is the side that was all burned up, of course, that melted. On this other side, doesn't look like there was any kind of damage at all, but it sure sounds like there's a leak. But I'll go step by step. I'm going to seal these two spots that I see, and it'll take a while. I'll let it dry and see how that does. And while it's drying, I guess I'll come up here and clean off the magnetos and the magnets. Alright, while the glue's drying on that intake, I'm going to, well, what I already did, you can see where I'd sanded off the magnet here, and I already finished this magneto. If you haven't seen what I do before, so I use this sandpaper. It comes off of a belt sander, and I do it because it's a really tough backing on it. It's not just paper, and you can just use the snot out of it. But I clean off the magnets, and you can see the corrosion on the tips of those. I go and clean the two ends, and then the bottom side, make sure those are clean because that's where it's grounding. Then you put it back on and set and gap it correctly, and you can use a business card. I just use whatever. This is from a product packaging. I use the cardboard off of that. Just make sure it's not too thick, but this works out pretty darn good. And that's it. You just file everything off, clean it up, put it back, gap it, and you're ready to go. Alright, well, I finished up. Put everything back on, changed the fuel line here, cleaned up and re-gapped the magnetos here. Everything was on. I started it up, and it's doing the same damn thing. So it runs great from up to 25-30% throttle, and then when I get up to the higher throttle, 75% and up, it starts to pop and backfire. And while it was running, I got some carburetor cleaner and sprayed it all around, and it made no difference. So there's no more air leaks or anything. What I was thinking, well, I even went and rechecked the valves also and re-gapped those, and they were fine. But I just went in and redid it again. But what I was thinking, so I got this, and this thing had been sitting around for quite a while, and you know what? It was full of gas when I got it, and so who knows? Is it a year old? Is that full tank of gas a year old or more? Must have been last summer, so maybe not quite a year. So maybe it's just old gas I got in there. That's just making it run like that. I guess what I could do, just to make sure, I could just ride around and burn it off. But what I'm thinking, I'm just going to drain this gas into a separate tank. and probably use it in one of my other mowers or something if it's not bad, and just put fresh gas in this thing and see what happens. That's about all I can think of right now. I've checked everything on this, and I just can't get rid of the popping and backfiring or whatever at the higher RPMs. It's like it's starving for fuel, so maybe it's not able to burn this old gas in there. So I don't know. I think I'll do that. I'll just find a big empty can and drain it out, put fresh gas in it. Alright, so I drained all the old gas out, put a new fuel filter, and filled it up almost all the way. I thought I was going to do half, but oh well. And that did the trick. So it's burning clean. There's no more air leaks anywhere. We've got new plugs, valves have been adjusted, everything is running really good. So, last but not least, if I decide to put a hood on it, I need to replace the bumper here and then get a hood. Just too bad they're so costly. I mean, last time I looked, about $750 new, and used about $250 on average. But I'll just have to keep my eye out for it. Maybe I'll go ahead and replace the bumper. I think that's about $20. Well, I think that's it. Not bad. It's looking pretty good. Not bad for a freebie. So just cleaned it up and serviced the mowing deck. Replaced all the pieces that were damaged by fire. Got everything tuned in, ready to go. The only thing is lacking is the bumper and the hood. But not bad for a freebie, right? So, well, I guess that's it for this one. On to the next project.